So I would be there by myself. And a lot of times you have alcoholic uncles come in, or you have a drug addict cousin come in and,
Hmm.
throw you a beating for no reason. I can remember just having my fingers broke just because I was there.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Real Men, Real Talk. This is the place where we have uncomfortable conversations in the world's most comfortable underwear. You can pick some up at the link down below, and I'm actually taking some photos of some right now. Soon to be released boxer briefs. All right, so we are joined with Mr. Eli Coffey, and this guy, I got to chat with him last week it was. And man, you just gave me like a cliff notes of your story, and I was like, oh my gosh, like we got to have you on. We got to have you tell some of your story, because I think that by offering your story, like the people who hear this will be able to get some perspective on life. Like that's the beauty of stories, is they don't necessarily offer solutions, they offer perspective. So if you guys hear part of your story and Eli's story, I think you're going to be helped, because this guy is a very upbeat, encouraging individual, and he's had a lot to overcome. So, Eli, welcome.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
How about, yeah, how about we start by just like intro yourself, like who you are, what you do, and maybe kind of like a 50,000-foot view of how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, so my name is Eli Coffey. I coach online. I coach people in varying sports. I have a lot of athletes participating in combat sports that I help with their strength training, nutrition, weight cuts. I coach bodybuilders. I lay out their entire bodybuilding prep. I have athletes that I do nutrition for, like power lifters and other modalities. And then I have lifestyle clients where I just kind of help them become the best version of themselves, whether that be trying to work to get off of a certain medication, or getting in better health, or just trying to get their life back to where they want it to be. Um, and I actually own a gym as well in Southeast Kentucky. I live near Lake Cumberland, and I have a gym here. It's called Mid City Gym. I own it with my business partner Annie Jaime.
Okay.
But I've been doing this now for, as far as coaching, probably about 12 years now. Um, and that's, I've done other things throughout the years, but this is what I've always felt compelled to do and what I really enjoy. So I get to work with people and kind of enjoy, be a part of them reaching their goals. So it's pretty awesome. It's very rewarding.
So would you say that's kind of like what drives you? Just sort of kind of on the day to day, is like what gets you out of bed is like, man, I get to see people reach their goals over the long term.
Yeah, and for me, it's like once you come to me with your goals, that's no longer just your goals. That's our goal. And I'll look at it in that very manner. And I mean, we're a team, and I'm not dropping the ball on my side. So I want to make sure that you have every single tool possible to reach those goals, and to do so safely, to do so while meeting your health markers. You know, and I remember how it was for me reaching certain goals, whether it be with with aesthetics or strength or whatever the case may be, and how that felt.
Yeah, and
And
we're gonna
getting
get into
to
that, by the way, later. That we got to save that, because that's part of your story that, like, I'm just like, wow, that's
Well,
freaking
thank you
crazy,
so
like what
much.
you've overcome.
Um,
Um,
but getting
so
to
on the top,
experience that with them as well.
yeah, yeah. So on the topic of overcoming, so let's rewind a little bit. You were telling me a bit about kind of like you grew up in not a great situation. Um, and I just want to kind of highlight that, because it's the not great situations that can lead us to overcome and be stronger men as a result. So just maybe start wherever you feel comfortable, kind of in that narrative. I mean, as far
Yeah.
back as possible would be great. Um, but you don't have to start with like, well, it all started when I was born.
Well,
Uh,
my mother and my father met a lot.
yeah.
But no, as far as so I was, I grew up in Southeast Kentucky, and I think a lot of times people don't understand. Like, you see a lot of the things on TV and the Hallmark movies and stuff of the Appalachian areas and the down home and stuff, and there's a lot of that too. But it's a very poor area that I come out of, and the county that I grew up in is about 90% national forest, so there's not a lot of work. And unfortunately, a lot of these areas, there's a lot of issues with you know drugs at this point, and from one
Mhm.
end of the spectrum to the other.
Was
And
that in existence when you were young?
yeah, 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 very much so.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
yeah, yeah, I was, I can remember, seeing things take place, in elementary school, like, you know, in areas around me and on my, road and things like that. And then being a kid and, someone like one road over getting beaten to death in a bad meth deal and so on. So yeah, like, yeah. So, I mean, it's not something that is seen a lot outside. I mean, it's not something that's going to make a lot of national news, but
Mhm.
the areas, those poor areas and so on, there's a lot of struggle there with drug abuse, and you've got these
Mhm.
people that they grew up in this area and they live in this area and they die in this area, and unfortunately, and it's sad, but a lot of times they don't get the opportunity to see other things that are out there
Yeah.
for whatever reason. But for me and my mother, we lived with my grandmother, and as a little boy, I would love like the action movies and stuff. Like we all seen Arnold and Jean-Claude Van Damme and stuff, and you want to be just like them.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, they always win the fight and they get the girl and they're the hero, and so
Uh-huh.
who doesn't want that? And but I remember seeing all these things, and so I would beg my mother for a weight set, because there was no gyms like
Mhm.
in that area. Like, I mean, I don't even know that many people even understood what a gym was, and this is pre-internet too, so it's not like I had Instagram to look at or any of these other things that are available now. I think there was a pharmacy in town that had like this magazine shelf, and I would go in there when my mom would be there, and I'd look at like the muscle mags and stuff.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
that's the only really exposure that I had to any sort of fitness or weightlifting or bodybuilding. But
So, where's your dad in this?
so my mother and my father separated when I was still an infant. He was gone all the time with work, and that caused issues. And but anyway, so no, I had no positive male figure in my life at that point in my age. So a lot of times I was kind of, you know, my mother would have to work. I remember at one point my mother was working three jobs to help take care of me, and yeah, because she and again, it's kind of, and I say this with so much pride. Like, my mother is my hero, you know,
Yeah.
and I'm where I am in life because of the work ethic that she instilled in me, just from seeing everything that she went through. But
Mhm.
her father passed away when she was young, and she had to go to work, and so unfortunately she wasn't able to finish school, and she went back later and got her GED and began to
Nice.
progress and stuff, and I'm so proud of her. She's done so awesome. And but so she and I lived with my grandmother,
Mhm.
and we lived on her farm, and it was again in this very small area here in southeast Kentucky. But
And could you
um,
answer another question for me?
yes, sir.
Um, so what did your dad do for work?
He was a long haul truck driver at that time.
Yep. I got
Yeah,
a brother who lives kind of in the Kentucky area. He's also a truck driver. He's done long haul stuff. But now he's making like day trips now.
yeah, yeah,
Because he's trying to be around for his
for
wife.
sure. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and his wife, like, so I've heard stories already from him buying a piece of property up there where, like, people
Yeah.
walk onto your property and you got to protect it. Like, you got to have a gun and say, "Get off my property,"
Well, I
because
mean,
like
a lot of times if
he's
you're
so
out in the middle of
close.
nowhere, you don't know who these people are. So,
Yeah,
imagine you've got a lady and a small child there. I mean, you don't know
yeah,
what's going on. And, this is, you have to consider too, this is in a time where cell phones weren't a thing,
hmm
you know, and in all seriousness, there was no 911 in my community until I was like, let's see, maybe I was either in late middle school or early high school when they did that,
yeah,
because a lot of streets didn't have street signs. There was no street signs on these roads, back roads and stuff. So,
yeah,
that was actually, they brought that into as part of the 911 program. The funding for that allowed
yeah,
for like all the streets to get named and street signs.
yeah.
Like, it's
You are the
literally that
911.
backwoods.
Like you and
Yeah,
your mom are the 911.
pretty much. Yeah.
Daggum.
But so with that, the situation she was in, we stayed with my grandmother, and that was kind of a not the best situation for me as a kid. And I know, we're talking about, you know, things as far as what we deal with to become who we are and later. And for me in that situation, it was a very abusive situation. Again, in that situation, I, um, would be there a lot of times by myself, and my mother would work night shift, and then she would work odd jobs through the day. And so I would be there by myself. And a lot of times that may, you have alcoholic uncles come in, and, or you have a drug addict cousin come in and, throw you a beating for no reason, just, I can remember just having my fingers broke just because I was there. And, so little things like that. So unfortunately, you begin to say, okay, well, if these are the people that are in my life that are supposed to care about me, well, then no one else certainly will. So, you begin to kind of have a skewed vision and understanding of what family is or how people treat one another. And you think, well, okay, all right.
Yeah, because you don't know any better.
No, you had no idea.
Like, how old are you at this time? Like, let's say when you got your fingers broken. How old were you when you got your fingers broken?
Early elementary. Just, misunderstood
Sorry,
something.
That almost brings me to tears. Like, I can't imagine somebody breaking like my daughter's fingers or my
Yeah, I
son's.
was maybe first grade or something. But I misunderstood something that an uncle had said or done and thought he was being playful. And no, he said, I told you to leave me alone, and grabs like my fingers and just peels them back to my wrist and breaks them. And so then I just have to kind of be there and wait till my mom gets home the next morning. And,
that's like the definition of effed up.
Yeah. And, and I can say that now, and it's, you, in those situations, or even, being in situations to where you have a cousin who's 10, 12 years older than you, pick a fight with you. And, what do you do? Like you're playing with trucks and they're driving trucks. Like that's a pretty big deficit. And, you're not going to win that fight. So for me, it became a situation where I would just, I felt safer being alone. So I would, it was, it wasn't a huge farm, but it was about 10, 11 acres. And so like for me, I would hear a car pull up and I would kind of look out the window and see who it was and see if I was safe. And if I wasn't, then I would just disappear. I would go, there was this big cornfield and I would go behind it and I would sit down there and I would, just kind of sit by myself and play or whatever until I seen the cars leave, then I'd go home. And, but you begin to, and it made me very introverted because I thought, well, if the people that are supposed to care about me are doing this, then, everybody else has got to be meaner than that. So at school, I was very introverted, and I didn't have the nicest clothes and everything. So I was just really quiet and I would do whatever the teacher said and try to make good grades because my mom would really much, very much instill that in me. And that was it. Like I'd go to school and hope to be left alone. And as a kid, it's kind of like, and you never know what the other kids are going through either. So sometimes as a kid, you're just hoping to find somebody that's doing a little worse than you are. So you feel better about yourself. And, and as silly as that sounds, it's very much true,
No, I laugh because like, I know the feeling.
Yeah. And, so here I am, just this insecure, little kid. And, so then that doesn't always do so good whenever you have like the louder kids that are looking for a subject or someone to prey on and kind of pick at. So, but that's kind of, that's probably my earliest memories of living there was, were things like that. And those are some of the more mild situations. There were cases where it got more extreme and, things that are a little, you don't want to go into certain things, but like and off camera I can tell you, but um, things where you felt like even sometimes like, maybe my entire health or my life might be at risk. I don't know what's going on, or, police are called and so on. But you see that, and now it changes my perspective. Like, you see these kids and they may be acting out or something. It's like, okay, well, what's going on? Where are they from?
Mm-hmm.
And, like, what are they having to deal with that's causing them to, to feel this way, or to try and, either seek attention, or, what's made him so insecure? What's made her so insecure? And because I remember, like, in school, like, teachers would pull me aside because they could see, like,
Mm-hmm.
and they would maybe, you know, see my hand was bruised, or they'd see something,
Mm-hmm.
and, you know, like, how's everything going? I'm like, it's okay, and I'm scared because I don't want to, I'm like, I can't tell you anything. Like, I know
Yeah.
what's going on. And, then you're too young to understand, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and, it's not like, I didn't have anyone in my life that, you know, was there to protect me except my mother, or any male figure that was positive.
Mm-hmm.
So nobody was, I've never seen any good come out of these things. It's like, well,
Mm-hmm.
kid that I knew in school that was in a bad spot, like, he got took out of his home, and it's like, I don't want to get took from my mother, so I'll just, I
Mm.
don't know what to say here. So everything's okay. I'm okay.
Yeah.
And
You're
yeah,
like,
so
it's not totally out of control, so it's okay.
well, it's sometimes, it could be out of control. It's just that that's what we've become accustomed to. It's like anything. It's like pain. Like,
Yeah.
they say, okay, well, what's your pain level? It's like, well, it's normal. They're like, well, normal 0, and it's like, well, that's your normal. I don't know. I've been hurting for a bit, and I don't know. So we kind of reestablish what our normal is, and
That's a good point.
you know, and especially as a child, and I think it kind of, whenever you're constantly in that fight or flight scenario, it, there's been studies like your brain will develop differently, and you're constantly, areas of your brain that shouldn't be ignited all the time are, and
Yeah,
you're
I bet you were very observant. Like
absolutely, like,
it wouldn't surprise me if you can like I bet that you notice if somebody's feeling off, like just at a glance.
yeah.
When a
So
lot of people would just say like, "Oh, hey, Joe Bob, whatever," and you're like immediately like, "Freaking Joe Bob, something happened to you,"
yeah,
or
so
"Oh wait, you're not, you're angry right now. There's something you're angry about, and you're not."
yeah, you develop these out of sheer protection,
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
self-preservation. And like, here at my gym, so I'll come here and coach clients one-on-one that I've had for years. I don't, at this point, I don't take on a lot of new clients, just because of my workload with coaching. But I at any point, I know what's going on inside of this building, because I feel responsible for everybody that's here.
Hmm.
And whenever I'm, to your point, like, if I'm working with someone, I'm like, hey, how you doing? I listen to how they say it as much as what they say.
Yeah, yeah.
And because I need to know, especially if I'm about to work with you on strength training, it's like, is he having a great day, or is he not? Like, is he feeling good, or is he not? Because they don't want to let me down. So they're going to say they feel good. But it's my job as a coach and someone that cares about them to kind of read between the lines. And
Hmm.
so, but yeah, absolutely. You get to that point even as a kid, like, you're constantly looking around,
Hmm.
like, I don't like sitting with my back to the door, for years. I didn't like that. Little things like that. You're very observant. And again, it's just coming out of those situations. It's kind of a self-preservation type thing. It's like, I need to
Yeah,
know if something goes wrong so that I'm safe.
yeah, yeah.
That's it. Yeah.
And that's really interesting that you gravitated to like, and I mean, who doesn't? Jean-Claude Van Damme, Sylvester Stallone, Arnold Schwarzenegger, these just like freaking jacked he-men.
Yeah.
Like you got a dad who's not there, and you've got other male figures who are abusive in various ways to varying degrees. You're constantly not knowing like if you're safe or not. And so you're like, well, I see that movie. I see him taking care of business. I see him strong. I want to be that. And can you talk a little bit about like kind of what, see, I can know that from a conceptual level, But like when you saw, like, say, any of those movies with those characters, like what like just I'm sure there was something in you that's just like, oh yeah, like you just like that's it. Like so what did you see that you're like you saw a characteristic in them and you're like, I want that. And here's why I want it.
So when I would see that, like I was, like I said, I was very introverted and I was very insecure. Um, for me, it was like, you know, to have done the things I have done later in life, I was not the first pick in gym class. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I was kind of a heavy kid. Um, like I said, I would, depending on the situation, I would just leave. And then, you're gone 3, 4 hours by yourself, just out here on the edge of the wood line, just waiting so you don't, you know, go into a bad situation and either get humiliated or physically harmed. And so when I got home, I was starving and I would just eat and eat. And and then too, like I said, the only sense of safety and comfort in my life was my mother. So, mother's like taking care of you. So, if she was there with me, she'd make me food or whatever. And so I was a heavy kid. And, you know, so you have, and I can laugh when I talk about all this now because I'm very comfortable with the situation I've come from, where I've been and where I'm at now. But it took a long time to get there.
Yeah.
But I can look back and think of situations where it's like, okay, well, you know, being insecure, being overweight, and being introverted, I wasn't getting a lot of attention from girls, and
Mm-hmm.
so I'd see these guys, and they had this look, and they had this confidence, and
Yeah.
all there was always some love interest that just fell head over heels for them,
Yeah.
and I'm like, man, if I could be big and strong like that, and I could you know, have the confidence they had, then I could not get, I could get myself out of this situation. I could, nobody would pick on me, or I'd be able to find a girlfriend and all these things. As a little kid, you're thinking of all that in your head,
Yeah. Yeah.
and because it seems that simple, right? You're watching the movie,
Yeah.
and
See,
you know,
there's him. There's
there's
the
him.
girl.
That's it. Yeah, he's got the muscles. He's got, he's the big tough guy. So, um, but but yeah, so that's, and then I really gravitated toward that because also too, you would even see in those movies that they're the lead of the movie, so they're actually kind and they're noble and they have this
Mm.
character,
Yeah.
so it's like, okay, well, that's not things I'm used to. Like all the men that I'm around aren't that way. So it's like, okay, these guys, they're nice and they're helping people and all that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it really made me gravitate toward that. So, but yeah, I remember we so it was a while before mom could buy VHS players, so we would rent one sometimes and rent movies. And then she had acquired like a few VHSs here and there, like I don't know, yard sales or something. But I remember we had Bloodsport, which
Okay.
was pretty epic,
Yeah.
and we had Commando and
Yeah. With Arnold
with Arnold.
Schwarzenegger.
Yeah,
Remember
yeah,
that one? Yeah.
yep. And then I remember National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. We had that. So when people talk to me, it's like, well, it's obvious where my whole personality comes from. Like I was raised with Jean-Claude Van Damme, Arnold, and Chevy Chase. So it's like it's just this combination.
I don't know
Uh,
about that Chevy Chase. Like,
uh,
I don't see the Chevy Chase so much, but maybe if I got
uh,
to know you
well, it's just
better, I'd probably see
you got
that.
to laugh about all of it,
Yeah.
um, but yeah, that was the thing. So, but anyway, that made me want to get more involved with. I wanted to lift weights. I wanted to be strong, and then I wanted to get involved in martial arts. I'd seen that and thought it was just the coolest thing ever. And for me, it was like, well, if I understood that and I could defend myself, then I wouldn't have to feel this way. I wouldn't have to feel, so insecure, like, and but in this area there was no such thing. There wasn't a gym, so at that age there really wasn't any sort of martial arts training. Um, but there was a somehow I'd rented um, the UFC whenever it came out on VHS, and yeah, and it was the second one. It wasn't the first one. It was the second one, and I remember that was the first time I'd seen anything like this, and it was the first time anyone had ever seen anything like this. But I remember watching it, seeing Horace Gracie and all these other guys, and of course Horace had won the tournament and so on. But man, I really need to get involved in that. I want to do that. And
Mm-hmm.
it was many years later before I could, but that always resonated with me was, seeing just seeing these guys and seeing that confidence and seeing, them be able to, essentially be themselves and not, you know, not constantly, feel that insecurity or that worry,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm. Dang, okay. Oh, that's a great answer because, and I can get that. If you're constantly in fight or flight, you're looking for some form of safety, and you can see like, all right, well, if I do this, then I
Yeah.
have a better shot at being
Yeah.
safe.
Yeah. It's like if I'm strong enough and I know how to take care of myself, well, then yeah, at least, and there's some truth to it regardless, but especially as a child, you see things so simply. And it's like, if I was bigger and I was stronger, then, they couldn't do this.
Yeah,
They would either be afraid to or they couldn't. And,
exactly.
so that was, that resonated with me. And I thought, well, I need to get bigger and stronger. So the first chance I got to either get a weight set or lift, it was like, I got to do this. That's the road they showed me. In the movies. I seen it. I remember the montages on Rocky. So like, we got to do this.
So now those movies, some of them, are military. So did you ever think about military service to kind of get there?
I did consider that, but like it was one of those things where nobody in my life had, so I didn't really know anybody that had, so it wasn't anything I got a chance to talk much about. So had I had somebody during those ages discuss that with me, there's a very good chance that I would have.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
that's a good point. Okay, it's just interesting because like I could see like the military provides like the structure
absolutely.
for somebody who's like you have obviously have the desire, the drive to be capable and take care of yourself in a situation. So I just thought like, no, maybe you jump into that, and yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, if I'd had someone in my life who had or someone that I could have talked to, that could have very well been the road that I'd taken.
Hmm.
Because I have the utmost respect for anyone that has, and I coach a lot of people that have, and a lot of
Hmm.
people in my gym have. So, it is something that I have the utmost respect for. And had I maybe had someone nudge me in that direction as a kid, I'm certain I would have you know, given that some great thought and probably headed in that direction.
Yeah. So this is interesting. Like you're saying, you like basically the only person who's like safe at this point. I'm gonna guess this is kind of around the age of 10ish. Maybe early teens. Like the only people that are safe are your mom, and maybe a choice one or two. Was there literally no men that like saw you and like are, oh my gosh, this kid, like I see the signs, you're coming with me, and
So yeah,
we're gonna
so
do
so
I'm gonna take care of you.
yeah, so you know, in elementary, you think like you know, elementary teachers are primarily female, and especially during that time. So most of my you know teachers and the faculty were female. I think the principal may have been a male, um, but yeah. And then I was just home all the time. I didn't have access to much of anything else. I tried a couple sports when I was younger, um, but it wasn't really something that I, I didn't really have anybody pushing me or nobody that I was around even watch sports or anything. So it wasn't
Mhm.
like it wasn't like I knew anybody that told me this is a good thing. My mother was supportive, but it was like again, it's not something that held any kind of great importance
Okay.
with anyone that I was around. And sometimes you know any discussion about it may have been met with negativity from the wrong people. So even if I wanted to play basketball or football or something, like it would be met with some negativity from my mother's
Mhm.
family. And
Okay.
so sometimes it was just in those situations as a child, it's just sometimes easier to not say much than to
Hmm.
say something, and the response hurts you or um, you know, kind of deter you from it. So
Mm. Okay.
yeah, but no, there wasn't. I think for me, the first time I started being around, anybody that gave kind of any sort of guidance was as I got a little bit older. like I would be maybe, you know, in later middle school, maybe eighth grade or so.
Okay.
And you go to a friend's house or something, and
Yeah.
they have a dad that is a pretty nice guy or something. But like, um, you know, for me, the first big male influences were, you know, when I started going to the gym, um, I would have been in high school at this point,
Okay.
and I met some guys that actually did train with MMA and jiu-jitsu and so on.
Hmm.
And they were the first people that was like, oh, I need to be around them. They do what I've wanted to do. So I really need to,
Yeah.
you know, I want to try to gravitate toward these people. And that's, you know, that's what I did. I would, you know, every time I seen them, I'd beg them to let me come train with them.
We're going to pause there because like this is such a good story, and we're going to pick back up with Eli's experience with with martial arts, with jiu-jitsu and training. So, hey, come back next week. We love you guys, and I'm excited for part 2. Now I get to listen to it right now, but sorry, you got to come back next week. So if you like this content, subscribe, hit the like button, and make sure you come back next week for part 2 of Eli Coffey's story.